everybody to the Insightful podcast. We gain insight in order to move forward in life. I know it's been a while, guys, but I wanted to come back and have a guest on the podcast instead of doing a solo episode. So today we're joined by a special guest, Mark. Mark, how are you doing today?
I'm blessed, bro. I'm blessed. How are you, Anthony?
Good, man. I could say I'm blessed too, man. No complaints. I kind of just like getting straight into the episode. So could you start off by introducing yourself and kind of explain who you are and what you do?
For sure. Yeah. So I'm Mark Petrucci. I'm 21. I live in Lawrenceville, Georgia. And for the past now 2 months or so, I've started doing fitness, faith, mindset kind of content. Eventually, we'll be getting into travel as well. So that's kind of like the main focus of my life right now. I wanted to spread the gospel and fitness in a creative way that not many people are doing is the goal.
Awesome. So you've realistically only been on social media, I guess, posting consistently for only 2 months, and you already have like 4,000 and something followers.
Well, I would say I've been doing posts on and off for a couple years, but never consistently. And it was always like in the past would be like just the B-roll kind of content without much value or at least much perspective of my own. So
Mm,
kind of it was like a resolution kind of deal after December when I stopped going to college that I was like, okay, if I'm going to take social media seriously, I need to have an approach and actually stick consistently with it. So it's been 2 months of actually consistently sticking with the social media now.
I see. So I guess what was the inspiration for, I guess, committing to it? Was that something just because of the resolution, or was there something, I guess, maybe deeper in a way that you wanted to share like content on social media?
Yeah, I think it can be a really long story. To make it a little bit shorter though, would
Mm,
be I had a really bad sophomore year of college, just a lot of socially and mentally. And the May of 2025, I realized I did not want to continue down this path. I was like in marketing and I just didn't feel like it was really for me. I was kind of there because I didn't know what I was doing. And around this time, a couple months earlier, I had started a clothing brand and I had started working with this influencer that scales clothing brands. His name is Marsh Cruz. And so, kind of speaking with him, he has a very entrepreneurial mindset.
mm,
And he really got me disciplined and motivated to start. So then the summer after sophomore year of college, I had been trying a bunch of different businesses like software as a service, AI things, but it was all for simply the pursuit of money because I was just in such a bad place. I wanted to escape, and none of it really was fulfilling or in my direction. And so
mm.
it's the kind of like the shiny object syndrome. I would stick with it for, 3, 4 weeks, and then I would move on to the next thing. And because of that, I had to go back to college for my fall semester junior year, so fall 2025. And I then just began kind of playing around in sales. I almost got into high ticket sales, but even then I felt like I did not want to make phone calls all day long. It was really still the pursuit of money. And so I have another wise mentor named Michael. And in October, a lot of stuff went down, and he was like, I think that your calling, which I had been speaking with him for years about, is to spread fitness and the gospel and just your mindset because you have had unique experiences that other people have had and don't want to share, and you have the opportunity to. And so, why not be delusional? Stop trying to pursue these business ventures that aren't you and make social media work out. Learn the skills behind marketing and personal branding, and then whatever you learn from there, you can take into a business in the future. And so, that's kind of why that's my approach right now.
I see. Okay, this is actually a good question I want to ask you because I hear the importance of it online, but I guess you kind of have it firsthand. Is how important was it that you had mentors in your life to kind of guide you through certain things? And do
Yeah.
you think that's maybe something a lot of people lack when it comes to like achieving goals is just a lack of a mentor to help them?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing with having a mentor is just the way that they view the world. And so, especially Michael, because I speak with him even more often than Marsh, is I will bring goals. I was raised in a very like most people, the idea is go to school, get a job, retire when you're 65. And for most people, that's practical. Maybe not so much anymore with AI, but still it's like the general consensus. I think when you have a mentor that has gone off the beaten path. For Michael, he's from Nigeria. And so obviously migrating here, way harder than being born here. And when I would share my goals with him, not only income, but like lifestyle, how I want to impact people, I would come to him and I would feel like these are unrealistic. And he would laugh at me because he's like, you're thinking too much inside of the box. I think the benefit with having a mentor is because of their experience, they can see things in you that you can't even see. And
Mm,
they push you to continue to challenge yourself. And for people that don't have mentors, I think over time, trying to network and put yourself in positions to meet those people is important. I think an easiest step is just compliments and really being genuinely polite to people because I met Michael at my church up in Athens where I was going to school because I had a goal at the start of 2024 that I was going to give like 10 compliments a day. And a lot of people thought that it was superficial because if I'd forget and I was at like 5 compliments, I'd just like start giving people random ones, but it was to build up a habit. And one day I met this guy, Michael. I knew nothing about him and he had some really cool shoes. And so I approached him and I got his contact because he was like, I really appreciate that, man. Let's connect. And still had nothing, no idea about this guy. And then about 4 months later, it was summertime. I DM'd him. And I was just checking in on him. Had no idea who this guy was, but I was just kind of bored that day. And he wanted to get coffee with me. And then he started telling me about his success with his businesses and all these kinds of things and his journey with Christ and wanting to find like-minded people and especially younger people like myself to help guide. And so I think the idea of mentors is it feels like you get lucky, which you do, but it's really what people say about just putting yourself in the right position. And I think even more so than that, I think a middle ground before you can find mentors is books that can educate you in a similar kind of way because
mm.
when I had everything go down in October, Michael was like, before you start on content, take these 2 months, start getting into therapy and start reading these books. And so I've gotten into philosophy and all that kind of stuff. And I realize what Michael, what Marsh, what a lot of these wise people speak about is directly from books. And so you may not have a mentor, but you can always get books that can help.
Yeah, because I feel like when people, I guess, make excuses for themselves because they don't have those types of figures in their life, the next best step is like you're saying, a book, because when you really realistically look at what books are, it's like thousands of years of wisdom from different types of people, from different ways of life, and
Yeah,
people that achieve different goals, and you can learn a little piece from every single book. Like, that's one of the biggest things I take away from reading, bro, is I'll read a book and then I'll tell myself, if I could just take one like piece of wisdom from this whole entire book that I could take on for the rest of my life, it would have been worth it. It would have been worth
absolutely.
reading it, right? So I think that makes a lot of sense to me, especially with like, I think when you're trying to do something outside the box, like you were saying, it's you're at a much more of a disadvantage when you're trying to go against the grain from like what your family and your peers think. So when you
Hmm.
have that person, they're like a guiding light for you because they're able to do it. So you want to do it. And that's cool that Marsh is your like mentor, because I've seen him online too and I love his content.
Yeah. I saw you got a brand too. It's doing good, man.
Yeah, I like trying to, man, trying to. Are you talking about the one in my bio?
Yeah.
Like the Christian one?
Yeah.
No, that's actually not mine, bro.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah, I was sponsored by them, and I think the owner is now selling the brand. So I don't know how
Oh,
long
okay.
that'll last, but it's definitely a cool journey to be a part of that.
For sure. For sure.
Hmm. Yeah, so I guess when it comes to your faith, bro, were you always like a person of faith, or was it something that you built like over time?
So I've always been Christian. I was raised Catholic, and I think being raised Catholic is ideal to an extent. I've had kind of varying opinions over the years, but I think that's a benefit because it challenges your beliefs. I think being raised Catholic taught me the reverence that I have for God now, but
Mm,
I didn't experience kind of like the love and connection with God until I went to college and I started experimenting with Protestant churches. And so there's this church up there in Athens at UGA called Wesley. I think it's Methodist, but it's like non-denominational. And I had never experienced worship like that. And my first experience at Wesley, um, beginning college, I had also had a difficult time, just kind of adjusting as many people do. And I had had a lot of health issues. And I just remember I had never been in a area with Protestant worshipers. And for Catholics, it's very it's very different. You know, it's like very formal, all these kinds of things. And so when I went to this youth night and people were worshiping and singing, I was uncomfortable and I saw people like crying and kneeling and I was just caught off guard. And at the end of that night, I was like, God, I've never really felt you before. I see these people falling on their knees, crying, like connecting with you in some sort of way. It feels like I want to feel that because you know how much I'm going through. I just want like if you're there, I just want a sign. And like at that moment, this guy, I don't remember who it was, but he came up to me and he was one of the workers at Wesley and he was just like, "What do you need to what do you need prayer over?" And like I was just sitting in a pew, like 20 seats a pew. And he just came and he was like, "What do you need prayer over?" At the instant that I said I needed a sign. And I would say that's like a mini testimony because I've still
Mm,
had trials and tribulations. I go through a bunch of doubt. So when people talk about how they doubt faith, I completely get them. But that was the moment when I was like, okay, I need to actually find out who Jesus is on a relationship level and pursue him. And so it wasn't immediate, but over the next coming months, I started pursuing my faith deeper, started finally reading the Bible at the start of 2024 and just slowly been a relationship of learning God on an emotional level through my Protestant faith, and then learning God on a more formal um, level with my Catholic faith. And I think that blend has really impacted my life on a really positive note.
mm. So it's like a blend of both for you as of right now.
Yeah, I would say.
I guess being someone that has been to both, I guess, denominations of worship, what do you think are the like biggest differences? Because I'm Catholic as well, and I've never got
Yeah.
into the Protestant church at all.
I think the biggest difference, and this isn't going to sound it's not going to sound judgmental. This is just my perspective. I've been experiencing it for now 2 years or so. I've also never been as involved in youth groups at my Catholic church as I have for Protestant. So I can only speak so much, but I think the benefit to being Catholic is there's so much there's more structure there and more I would say guidance and formality in terms of like we were the original church. There's a lot of biblical teaching and they're very upfront. That a lot of the kind of like worldly things, worldly temptations, degeneracy does not go on. They don't play about it with Catholics because they're built different. I'm not even gonna lie. Like priests, I think because they're not afraid to bring people in, they will just go hard. They will go hard on topics that I notice other pastors are scared to talk about. And I think
Mm,
it's a great thing because I think there needs to be a balance. I don't mind when a Protestant church is caring to bring people in, but at the same time, kind of like how I speak about on my videos, and I'm sure you believe is you need to bring people to Jesus, but then you need to show them the right Jesus and you need to show them how Jesus would believe in certain policies. And I didn't experience that as much in Protestant churches as I have with Catholic churches. And I think it's a great blend because for me, because then I get like the formal teachings and I have strict structure from my Catholicism, but then I'm able to have fun and excitement and real joy, especially worshiping when I experience Protestantism. And so it's been a real benefit to me. I think with a lot of people, when they say, like, they don't like if a priest or pastor will talk on certain topics because it's like they're trying to speak for God, but at the same
mm,
time, the mindset of like an only strictly personal relationship with God is the reason there's so many denominations and so much even like political differences within Christians is because when you allow your faith and your own perspectives to determine how you think Jesus would have taught, it's kind of misconstrued versus when you have a person like a pastor or a priest that their main priority is God, you're getting guidance that likely has been more kind of like convicted and thought over than you have. And I think it's a benefit for that.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that because at the end of the day, how you perceive it is your own interpretation of what you read and what you feel and your connection to God versus someone that has studied theology in university and has like continued studying it throughout like decades, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's super important to, I guess, see that distinction, right? But I think it's kind of like you're saying. I think for everyone, it's what's better for you. Where do you feel God the most? Where is your connection the strongest? And I think as long as you follow that, in my opinion, I think you're doing right. Because it's like you're
100%.
saying, if someone goes to a Catholic church but doesn't feel like God's present, but then goes to a different denomination and feels it more, then why would they force themselves to be a part of this denomination when they can't feel God in their life?
Yeah. I'm kind of torn over that because only recently I've been more involved in trying to learn theology on a deep level. And so the fact with what is it, transubstantiation and like the belief that it's actually the body and bread, I feel so convicted on that because it's not reliant for salvation, but it's so important that I wish it was more involved in Protestant services, but it's
Mm,
not. And it's kind of like this difficult balance because you don't need it for salvation. And so all Christians, so long as they believe Jesus was resurrected and died for our sins, all that kind of stuff, are Christians. But when you believe the way that you and I do about the Eucharist, there's just this huge element of our faith that is missing in those churches and those worshipers that I wish they could experience, but it is difficult, especially if you're raised in a Protestant church. I know if I was, I would hate Mass because I'd find it so boring. And I'd probably be offended that you couldn't get the Eucharist until you like went through all the kind of like stages. And so I understand why people don't appreciate the Catholic Church,
mm.
but I definitely could not turn away from the Eucharist knowing what I know about it.
Exactly. Yeah. Like the fact you have to go through the sacraments to have the Eucharist. And it's like you're saying, I think anyone outside of it that didn't grow up with it, they can't comprehend the importance of it or even how it makes sense to them. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? I've constantly seen those debates online between like Orthodox and even just Catholic with Protestant, right? But
yeah,
like I was saying earlier, I think it's just important to be where you feel your faith the most, you know?
100%. 100%.
Hmm. So my next question for you, bro, is I want to kind of ask you, what was the biggest hurdle you had in your journey of faith to strengthen your connection with God? Was there something that was like stopping you or something that was blocking you? And then once you overcame that thing, it kind of allowed you to get closer and feel God's presence more in your life?
And there was never a hurdle. I think like I think the main thing was just kind of experiencing the fact that a relationship with God doesn't have to feel like so much pressure and so forced because that's
Mm,
how it felt only experiencing Catholicism. Again, I was closed off from Catholic youth groups from my own kind of like faults not going to them. But that was kind of the thing that was stopping me is I was kind of bored and I wasn't interested in learning about God. But I think once you feel God, you have this excitement that you're like, okay, I want to learn about him more and I want to understand him more. And then I think a lot of Christians get to a point a couple years in where they're like, I want to test my faith because Peter calls for us to defend the reason that we have a hope. And so that's where I'm at now is like, I'm trying to learn, okay, what are the actual evidence behind Jesus' resurrection? And why is it not Islam? And why is it not atheism? And why is it not Buddhism? And all of these things. And I think it's just like a constant journey. I mean, we're here to spread the gospel. And I think any person that believes in God, when you really like take a step back, everything else in the world, work, school, all these things are pointless if you don't have a connection with God. And so then once you find God, I think a huge priority in your life should be to understand him as much as possible because it doesn't matter how much money you make or what degree you have or the friends you have or anything of that sort. If you're going to die and just not be in heaven. I don't see a purpose in living if that's not the intention.
Mm, 100%. And I think that's where the true love of God comes from, is trying to understand him to the best of your abilities. Because even when you look at love in general with like person to person or like friends or family, you're constantly trying to understand the person and trying to build a stronger connection with them. So if your love is there, you'll find a way to, I guess, learn more or try to deepen your connection, right?
100%. 100%. Yeah, you want to know them as much as possible.
Yeah. So I want to kind of pivot, bro. I want to go to, I guess, like where you speak about mindset and stuff of that nature. Would you say a lot of like the discipline you have and the mindset you have come from your faith?
Um, I don't think so. I
Mm.
think I think it's really just the faith helps, but it's really just kind of genetic, I would say.
Oh, you would say it's genetic.
Yeah. I think just because it's just faith alone, I would be broken at this point. I would have given up. And I think it's just kind of like this thing where it's like no matter what happens, I will continue to pursue and I'll continue to push. And I had this even before I was really close with God. So I don't think it's entirely derived from faith alone or that being the like biggest motivator of it.
Mm. I see. So when it comes to your goals, what do you have in the forefront of your mind to, I guess, get them done? Is it a version of yourself that you're chasing in a sense?
Not even chasing, it's just a version of myself that I hate and never want to return to. And it's
Mm.
not even something that I'm not anymore, but I'm transitioning out of it. I think for a lot of people, like when you listen to Hermosi, right? He just hated where he was at. And I've heard quotes of him where he just did not want to be alive anymore. And for me, from about 18 on, but especially my sophomore year of college, like I did not want to be alive anymore. And sleeping was non-existent, all these kinds of things that, it starts, I'm sure for him, I'm sure for you, or at least a lot of people, it starts where it really just feels like this chaotic part of yourself that you can almost hide. But over time, if you don't handle it, it's going to damage the people you love most and you care about most. And that's what happened with me is like relationships and friendships and a lot of things in my life I destroyed because I hated myself so much that I wasn't able to be the person I was meant to be. And whenever I would try to strive and improve and work toward God, because you have just that such hatred inside of you, you just can't really break out of it. At least I couldn't break out of it. And so I think what I'm working toward now is, like I told you, like this summer, it was just fleeing from how much I hated myself and just wanting to just distract myself. I thought, okay, if I have enough money, I can just move away. I can completely forget my old life and rebuild this person. But where is God in that? And where is my actual passion to do a job or do a career that I fulfilled by? And it's not there. And so it's kind of been this journey where now I'm still running from that person that I hated. Unfortunately, that person is fully attributed to my college that I was at. And so whenever I'm there, it's this feeling of just despair and depression that I can't even describe. And
Mm.
that's part of the reason I left college. And I think just there's still this element of running away. I'm not really big on running away from your problems unless they're too big that you need to. But I think that push from who you hate is always going to be bigger than a pull from like who you want to be. Because I even think a lot of people, I like the people that I listen to most just had such rough upbringings, whether it's just abusive or their family was poor or they had severe depression or whatever it is. Like I feel like if you are raised and your situation is all good, you can't just motivate yourself, oh, I want to be a billionaire, I want to be a billionaire. And for most people, that wouldn't work because it's like, what can you fall back on? If your fallback is comfortable enough, you're gonna stay there. But if
Mm.
my fallback is like, bro, if I didn't have Jesus, I would have ended it so many times. If that's my fallback is like, okay, I know I won't end it, but I hate existing, then I have to continue to push and I have to persevere. because the reality is so bad.
Mm. Yeah, I couldn't agree with that more, bro, because I think I always say this on the podcast and some of the videos I make is that the beginning of self improvement, whatever that looks for the individual, is hating who you are and where you are. Because I
Yeah.
think if those feelings aren't strong enough, that's how you always revert back to your old ways because you're kind of like you were saying okay with who you are and where you are. So I think it sucks because that means your life was like terrible before this or before you started to improve upon it. But I think the silver lining in all of that is that it was so bad that it allowed you to change. You know what
Without
I
a
mean?
doubt. Without a
Yeah.
doubt. I completely agree. It is. It's this tough balance because I look at it and I'm like, dude, nothing would I want more than to still be at college and be with friends and have actually like enjoyed myself. I think a lot of people struggle with identity at college, but they're still able to enjoy themselves. And for me, every waking moment was aggravating. That was like so badly I wanted this reality where I had friends, I had a girlfriend, I had a good life at college. But then I look at it, bro, no hate to anybody that's getting a marketing degree, but I had no like passion for it. I had no longevity. I was just thinking in the moment, wanting to be happy with people, which I think is great. But then if you have no long-term plan, what was going to happen after I graduated? And so as much as the suffering has kind of sucked, I have learned so much and have built this mindset to where I'm like, bro, I don't want to ever have to worry about, am I going to be able to retire? Am I going to be able to afford a house? Am I going to be able to vacation more than once a year? Like that's not in my scope of reality. And
Mm,
even just the mindset of like paying off a car monthly, all these things is I'm going to take as much advantage of how much this situation sucks as possible so that I can have a life that I would have never had otherwise. Something I was telling myself, and I would tell my parents, they've been such big supporters. Even though they hate that I walked away from college, they've been such big supporters. Is it's kind of reckless mindset, but I was like, okay, like if I didn't get to have, and I'm not talking worldly, but if I didn't get to have the college experience, as in the girlfriend, the friend group, all this kind of stuff, that 99% of other people get to have, then I'm going to have the after college experience that 99% of people won't ever experience. And that's, again, not going to be worldly, but that's going to be traveling whenever I want, providing for people, leaving an impact. Because just the way the situation broke down, it's like, what other story am I going to tell myself? What? So college is going to suck, and then my whole rest of my life, I'm going to sit back, not take advantage of it, and that's going to suck too. Like, that's not what I'm going to allow anymore, you know?
hmm And I think that's very inspiring because you took a situation that sucked and you found a way to kind of turn it around and go after something bigger and better for you. You know what I mean? I think a lot of people
Yeah.
in that same situation would have felt miserable and would have been in such a dark place that maybe they didn't even try to change or strive for something better. Whereas you kind of switched it around and kind of told yourself, like, if I didn't have this thing, I'm going to have this other thing no
Right.
matter what. And at whatever cost it takes. Right.
Yeah, but it kind of takes a while for that. I mean, what I've been struggling with for 3.5 years now, and it's only been the last 10 months that I really have like been like, okay, like if this is gonna be how it is, then I'm taking it and I'm actually handling it. So the first 2.5 years college I was using to just like have as a distraction. Like I had all these mental problems that I was like, okay, I just want to spend time with my friends and spend time with the girl I like and all of these things and just hope that these problems go away. And like I said, when they don't, you hurt the people that you love the most and you make it to where they never want to take you back. And it's so
Mm,
real. And um so for people that struggle with things and then they're like, why don't I have that kind of ability to break out and that mindset to break out? Like it takes time and it takes, I think when people say you like they've hit rock bottom, there is really no rock bottom. I mean, I hit a rock bottom, but I don't even think that's the bottom. I truly think like things can always get worse. And so
yes.
there, it just got to such a low extent that I was like, those times months ago that I nearly ended it were a cakewalk compared to this. And it got to such a bad extent. I woke up one day and I lost damn near everybody. And these were people I still love with my whole heart, that I was like, dude, I damn near have nothing. I Let me just walk away and just build a whole new life, because that was really the only thing I had left. And that's why I also talk about lust so much, is not because I've completely overcome it, but because it is something that destroys the lives of so many and has taken so much of my life away from me. And I think for lust, even, I talk about it in a way that's super difficult and super blunt, because if you don't, you're not going to really realize how serious and destroying it is until you lose everything.
Mm,
And once I lost everything because of it, I realized I need to get serious with this, or it's just going to continue to be a pattern for the rest of my life.
mm-hmm. And definitely nowadays, bro, with the way the internet is and the way society is, lust is fighting an uphill battle. You know,
Yeah,
it's way more difficult than it was, let's say, 50 years ago. And it's something that you need to guard your mind from, I think, because there's just constant distractions, constant lustful distractions on a day-to-day basis that if you don't guard your mind, it could definitely ruin you.
dude, it is it is a poison like nothing else. And if you're not honest about it, yeah, you can have, the girl, you can have the friends and hide it, but it's just going to eat you alive. And then if you're honest about it, you could lose everything. But if you're honest about it and you lose everything, at least you learn hard enough to start taking the steps to overcome it in the way you should. Because me personally, I'm not about to be the husband that even watches porn once a year. I'm going to be completely, completely loyal to my wife to a degree that is what God is meant for us to. And I
Hmm.
think the whole idea, like even once a year, once a month, all these things is still just like the level needs to be none. The level needs to be absolute. Like when you fall, yeah, have compassion, all these things, because I've struggled the last couple weeks. But at the same time, I'm looking at it like I can't just have the standard be, as long as I watch it once a month, like I'm better than most guys, because my wife is not going to want somebody that cheats on her once a month. And in
Mm.
Matthew, it says, whoever looks at a woman with lust has committed adultery in his heart. And I took that to heart. And it's so true. I wouldn't want my wife doing that. I wouldn't want to be doing that to my wife.
Yeah, and I think nowadays, bro, is just the standard has been lowered, whereas a lot of people will say that, like, even what you're saying, like once a month is okay, or once a week is okay. And I think that's where we kind of allow ourselves to do the things that we know we shouldn't be doing because we're hearing other people say that it's okay. Where, like you're saying, some people don't even look at that as a form of cheating.
I
Like
know.
nowadays, some people don't even look at that as a form of cheating. Where you, I don't know, just like think about what that concept looks like. How is it not right?
Yeah. And I used to not. And then once I read the Bible for real, I was like, wow, this is cheating. And I have severe OCD in the form of what's called scrupulosity. So it's biblical, it's religious, and it's very guilt driven. And so when I saw that as cheating, and my whole life up until I was 19, I didn't view it as cheating. And so when I'd be in relationships and I'd watch it, I wouldn't feel convicted. Then when I got into a relationship and I had this habit, I had consistently worked on beating it, and I'd gotten good. I'd gotten, decent. Like months I'd go by. But then once I'd fall, man, I'd fall hard and I'd over confess it. Like I'd over and over and over just because of my OCD. And it was like telling God was not enough. And I would just continuously just drop this news on her. And that's why for me it's never, is because there's never going to get to a point where it is only okay for me to confess it to God or confess it to my boys. If I'm with a girl that I love, she's going to need to know, and it's going to break her. And so the only option I have is for that standard to be never, and for me to
Mm.
work as hard as I can to meet that standard as a single man. So once I get in a relationship, that's not even something that she has to ask of me.
I see. 100%. So when you look at it, bro, do you think the purest form of masculinity comes from the Bible and I guess how the Bible says we should be as men?
100%. I think I think a lot of the masculinity stuff on social media is so cooked. It's
Mm.
so it's so vanity driven and it's really, really cooked. Jesus is the ultimate form of masculinity.
Yeah, I would agree, especially with all the materialism and, the whole concept of people preaching being with multiple women at the same time. I
Yeah,
just think that it's putting society in a bad direction. And just the whole concept, bro, of no one cares about another person's feelings anymore. And I
I
think
know.
that's why relationships don't work. When I look at the older people in my family that have been together for, let's say, 50 years, there's like a common denominator in their marriage, right? And I think the thing is that the partner cares more about the other partner than themselves,
Yeah,
which is something you don't see anymore because the reason why people don't do that today is that if something does go wrong in the relationship, they don't want to feel like they put in more. They put in more, they
yeah,
cared more, and
that's
you
good.
you you like you broke this up between us. Whereas like I have the whole mindset of if I could be the best man I could be for my partner, even if they decide in the future that they no longer want to be with me anymore, I could have the confidence and I could feel good in myself knowing that I was the best I could have been as a man for that person, you know?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Yeah, because it's also just with social media and with dating apps, it's
Mm,
like, dude, if they don't like one thing about the person, they can just dip. They have other options. And I hate that mentality. I have never been a fan of that mentality, but you get in college and you realize how bad it truly is. You think in high school it's bad, in college it's so bad. And especially when you'll see couples break up and then the next week, you can really tell who cared when one of them is
yes.
good and the other person just immediately moves on, you know?
Yeah, and then you ask yourself, bro, like was that love? Like people will throw that word around a lot, like I'm in love with you or I love you. And when you see stuff like that, where that same person that was with that individual for 2 years, and then a week later there was someone else after they broke up, was that really love? Because imagine you lost someone you love in your family. You'd be devastated, not for a week, not for 2 weeks. That would carry on with you probably the rest of your life because that's what real
Yeah.
love is, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, man. I completely agree. Dude, when I love somebody, even a friend, it shatters me. It shatters me. I think, like you have people for seasons in life, and I realize that, but when that season gets interrupted, like it did with college, bro, I was shattered. I still am shattered because it doesn't even matter if some people do you wrong. Like you knew those people, you knew their hearts. You had so many memories with them that it shatters you and it breaks you. And I think like when you're asking Jesus is the ultimate source of masculinity, when you look at how he treated people, I heard from somebody I was talking to the other day, like, do you realize if Judas just didn't hang himself, Jesus would have forgiven him. He would have been at heaven. And it's crazy because there's nothing like it. And when we look at the way that Jesus was serving other people, it would break his heart when he was just giving love to people and they weren't receptive of it. Their hearts were hardened and they weren't soft enough to actually absorb his love. And like for me, man, yeah, if I love somebody, it is going to take a long time, if not ever, for me to really care about them, especially because I've had some really rough relationships in the past in high school and always having a very like pure mindset myself, when those relationships would taint me, it continued to just up the standard of people that I would surround myself with and girls that I would date. That when that person I lose, it continuously just makes it more difficult to make new friends or
Mm.
even entertain somebody else because the standard is just so hard to meet.
Yeah, no, especially when you feel like you've been done wrong. a bunch of times, there's that defense mechanism in your mind that just doesn't want that to happen again,
Yeah,
right? And it's easier
100%.
said than done. Like, we're speaking about basically loving deeply, no matter if it's not receptive till the very end. But that's much easier said than done, right? Like, as people, we're constantly trying to protect ourselves, even if we don't want to think like that. But I think the best thing we could do is just try, right?
Yeah, dude. Yeah, I think I've learned a lot now since October because I've read obviously a lot of books now. And I think I read through meditations, right? The idea of stoicism and just keeping emotions, handling it well. And the idea that I've come across is to be intentional with who you open up your emotions to. And it's not to be closed off, but not to be open to everybody. But I
Yeah.
think of the two, shoot, I'd rather open up my feelings and my heart to everybody than to nobody. And when I'm on content, I'd rather tell things and open up things and speak about my convictions that may seem embarrassing if it can even just help some person that was feeling the way I do. And if I love somebody, like I need to show them, I need to let them know because dude, if they leave me, at least I know I love them as much as I could have. And then if I wasn't able to love them as much as I could have, you better like you bet yourself I would let them know when I get my mind clear and I realize like I lost this person. It was my fault. I'm going to let them know how important they were to me because I didn't at the time. So I think any opportunity you have, obviously you need to be intentional with how you carry your emotions and who you say what to, like how like because you need to protect your heart at the end of the day. But I think the biggest cope that masculinity tries to frame nowadays is that you need to hide your heart from everybody, except for maybe that one girl if you get lucky enough to meet her. But then you've
Mm,
never really learned how to communicate your feelings. You've never learned how to love others. And a really big book that has been impacting me recently, it's How to Win Friends and Influence People. And it's just because it speaks about how true it is. Like the biggest thing and yet the thing that people lack the most is this feeling of importance because people just go throughout their lives and they never acknowledge others. You'll point out the fault in somebody 100 times, but then when they do what you've asked, you don't even bat an eye. You don't even mention it. And so really that the book and the mindset of it is just so telling to me that, dude, if I love somebody, I'm just going to just give them so much praise and I'm going to give them so much kindness because there's there's so much in this world that's going to beat you down, so much in this world that's going to take you away. And one compliment will hit like a truck every single time because you get so few compliments compared to hate and compared to disrespect and all those things that when you have one of those friends that will just stand by you and a friend that cares to learn about why you did the mistakes you did, not just look at those mistakes point blank and judge you for it, but try to understand the person behind it and the snowball effect that built up into it. That is the kind of person that you need to keep by your side no matter what, because so many people will just look at somebody's faults and hear through the grapevine and judge you for it. But then if there's a person that has heard those things, has understood those things, know what you did, but then they want to know why you did those things. They want to know like what hurt you so bad. They see a different side of you. And that's how you can really love somebody is when you've seen every single side of them and you still choose to care for them and love them and treat them the way that God would want them to be treated, no matter what they went through, because you never know. They could have gone through something so hard that explains a lot of the reason why they did the things they did.
hmm Yeah, and I think that's circling back to everything we kind of been talking about this episode. Is just we got to have more empathy, because if you don't have empathy, you can never look at someone like that. I think the most important thing we must realize as people is that people do bad things or people make mistakes because of their circumstances. A lot of the times, if you were put in that same circumstance, you would do the same thing. So,
100%.
who are you to judge that person based on what they did? And that's one of my favorite quotes. Like, I don't know who said it or if it's in the Bible or not, but we live in a world that judges sinners. We live in a world of sinners that judge other sinners for different sins. And
Yeah.
I think that's like, so it's hit me, and like I remember that and I think about it all the time, is because that's exactly the kind of world we live in, is that we lack so much empathy for others that
Yeah.
we just, our first initial thing is to judge someone before even knowing their whole story.
Yeah, understanding their perspective and looking at it and just asking questions because truly, if you knew the things that they were going through, you'd understand why they had this happen to them, or you'd understand why they have this belief. And so, even like political beliefs now, I just try to learn as much as I can about the person in the situation and why they think the way they do. And it just makes you so much more open to situations because no longer are you just looking at things black and white and just th- aligning it with what you already agree with, but you're challenging your beliefs. You're seeing about different opinions, and it's allowing you to view every single person as just a matter of their morality and like what they care about most and what speaks to their heart instead of this person is right, this person is wrong. I am only going to speak to the people that are right with me because you
Hmm.
get so closed off and it doesn't allow you to be empathetic because if you only love that you're talking about this one thing in the Bible, which is like Jesus says, if you only love those who agree with you, even the Pharisees do that. Even the tax collectors do that. A true Christian, a true man of God, a true human being loves those that they disagree with most, that has hurt them most, because before stopping at just what they did, they try to understand the person behind that and what they went through to cause them to do that thing. Doesn't
Hmm.
mean then you have to be best friends with them, but it allows you to
Exactly.
actually care for them.
Yeah, no, 100%. So I have two more questions for you, bro, before we close it out. And the first one is, what are you most proud of yourself for overcoming, or what are you most proud of yourself for doing or accomplishing, or even letting go of something in your life?
Um, there's things I haven't let go of. So it can't be that. There's, I would just say I'm proud that I'm not afraid to pursue my delusions because I think when you're in such a dark place, the only thing you can be is delusional, and the only thing you can be is crazy optimistic. And then on the other side of that is, are you going to choose to pursue it or not? Because if you don't, it doesn't really matter what those dreams are. You're going to stay stuck in this place. And so I'm just proud that I've had the delusions crazy enough to take them serious and take an action that looks cringy. Leaving college to do social media looks cringy, but I decided to take that leap and I'm just proud of that. Regardless of what comes out of it, I'm just proud that I looked at the situation. I knew how much I was hurting. I knew how bad it was for me. And I was able to take that opportunity to do a decision that I was actually desired to do, that God put on my heart. And I didn't just let that feeling go by and continue to suffer.
Mm, amazing, bro. That's what I think is truly inspiring about what you've shared on this episode, is that you didn't give up, and I think some people may look at that as a cliche, but when you actually hear someone's story and seeing that they didn't give up, it almost fires you up to like do the same thing, because at the end of the day, everyone goes through tough things. And I think what separates people is the people that look at those difficult things and always find a way out, no matter how difficult it is.
Yeah, 100%. Everybody goes through crap. So it really is just the people that are able to stick with something long enough to get through it and use that just as a testimony to help others. Nobody's
Mm-hmm.
inspired by the person that grew up easy and got successful. Like imagine a movie that was the circumstance. Nobody would watch the movie besides the
Yeah.
people that are like that, and damn near nobody is like that. So like our battles and our wounds are the stories that allow us to be happy when we make it and we just go to bed at night and we just have a small smile in our face. And it's that story that helps those people that are suffering to look at that person and be like, okay, if they could do this, then I can do this too. And it's going to look different for me, but it's going to be possible.
Hmm. That's what I love, bro. The hero's journey, coming from rock bottom and finding a way out and making something of yourself. Those are my favorite stories and the most inspiring, right?
Seriously. I just got
Hmm.
The Alchemist today, and apparently that's what the whole narrative is about. This boy that goes on this journey, and he realizes what he was looking for was in his backyard, but he never would have noticed it if he didn't become the person he had to be. So I'm looking
Hmm.
forward to hearing that.
Yeah, I might need to take a look at that too because I've heard a lot of good things about it.
Yeah.
Hmm. And for my last question, bro, I ask every single guest on the podcast this question, and that is, Mark, how do you want to be remembered?
I think the thing is, nobody will be remembered within enough generations. Of course, there's those few, those historical few, but I think the pursuit of trying to be remembered is vain and ultimately too too ambitious. There's not much of a wholesome goal there. I don't
Mm,
want to be remembered for any sort of thing except just getting people to see Jesus in a different light, because there's so many ways that people can view Jesus, and I think that every person goes through a testimony that can allow them to touch the hearts of people with God in different ways. And so if my content or my story or whatever it could be, as cliche as it is, could bring just a few people to know God that never knew God and gave them a type of faith that was beating all doubt that they could have, that would be enough of a memory. If somebody says, "What's your testimony?" and it's, "I saw this person, Mark, and he told me his story and it resonated with me." That's the only memory that would really matter for me, because everything else, obviously I would love to be remembered for great things, but it will never last. And so to pursue that is to pursue something that is fleeting. But to pursue something where you spread the almighty Jesus is that's a pursuit worth pursuing.
very well said, bro. I want to say thank you for being on the podcast and taking your time today to share your story. It means a lot.
I appreciate it, Anthony. Thank you for having me on. I had a great time talking about these things. Um, I think that you have an extremely similar mindset to me, and it's always great to obviously speak with people that have different mindsets, but I think you and I are able to push each other and open even our others' eyes and our others' perspectives so that we can continue to grow. And I'm glad that you DM me, and I really appreciate that you saw me and you took a chance on me, because not many people do, and it says a lot about you.
Mm, thank you, bro. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
So to everyone listening that made it this far, remember to like, comment, subscribe, and comment any other topics or any other guests you would want on the podcast. Maybe I could try my best to get them on. But Mark, thank you once again for being on the podcast and taking the time out of your day to share your story. It always means a lot to have these people's different perspectives. And like we were talking about earlier, everyone's journey is different. And I think if we all kind of shared our journeys in some way, I think we would all realize how more connected we are. Because, like you're saying, me and you have a similar mindset. You live in Atlanta, right?
Yeah,
I live in Ontario, Canada. So I would have never been able to speak to you unless I DM'd you about the podcast. So it means a lot that we're able to connect today.
100%.
Thank you, everybody, for watching this episode, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.
Crush a cold to a diamond, eyes forever shining. Your beauty alone inspire a nigga to rhyming.